Do you think now with the current political situation that the extension of 1 to 2 months is the right solution? I know that other member states during the Eurogroup and the IMF was pushing for a longer extension.
The position of the Commission was that 2 to 3 months was the good time for extension. Why more? I think the Greek government, the Greek parliament, the Greek authorities and the Greek people have the means to do what is needed in that period of time. Why doing more? And it's good to have a short extension, because after the extension it's the end of the program, and after the end of the program is a credit line, and then another kind of relationship with the European institutions. It's good for the Greek people.
Yeah, but it's also, let's say that you might have a different government that till now it's unclear what's the position with the Troika or the Europeans or the IMF will be. So a longer extension would have reassured that even the new government will have to stay in program.
Yes, but it would also have looked as if we didn't trust the government's effort, and we didn't trust the capacity of the parliament to vote, and we didn't trust the capacity of the Greek economy to reform. It's a sign of faith, it's a sign of trust that we did. And you know, I'm not there to make any kind of political fiction. I don't know what will happen in the presidential election. I don't know what would happen if, I don't know what would happen if there were elections. I'm dealing with the government. On Monday, we'll meet Mr. Samaras. He's the Prime Minister of this country. He's running the country. I will meet the other parties of the coalition. I will meet economic actors. I will meet social actors. I will meet the business community. And I will meet them because today they are legitimate and they're working for their countries. And I hope that there will be a solution. You know, Jean-Claude Juncker, the President of the Commission, delivered through his porte-parole, his spokesman, a message saying that clearly we would like the present parliament to elect a president, and that Mr. Dimas, who was a commissioner, is a good man.
Your recent statement on the Greek Prime Minister, that he knows what he's doing, your visit, your endorsement of the presidential candidate, seems like Eurozone cannot afford at this point uncertainty. Let's say that Greece cannot go wrong at this moment, now that the European Union enters a new narrative on investment and a new page on the economy. How are you planning to avert a Greek accident?
I think it's very positive that Greece stays in the Eurozone. It's not a conviction for today. It was yesterday too. For 2 years I've been the Minister of Finance of my country, France. I made 3 visits in Athens during those 2 years. That's quite a lot. And it was always to have a supportive message. And always I said, we need to have Greece in the Eurozone. And we need a strong Greece. And we need to help Greece to be strong. Now, I'm the European Commissioner. It's my 4th visit in 2 years, with the same message. So I believe that Europe needs Greece. Greece is, well, so important country for all that we're doing here. You invented everything, democracy, republic. So there is kind of Greek genius there, and we need Greece, obviously, in the Eurozone. And I'm working with those people who want Greece to stay at the heart of Europe, in the core Europe, and to be in a better situation with a better economy.
In the last Eurogroup and the last Euro Working Group, Commission presented the significant progress together with the outstanding issues in the negotiations with the Troika, while the IMF identified limited progress. How do you comment on these different assessments?
I don't. We are working with other institutions. We are working with the IMF. We are working with the ECB. And finally, when we come to decisions, we must agree. And the Eurogroup agreed. It agreed on positions which were, in my view, as satisfying as possible. We are close to the views defended by the Commission, but I'm not in the good cop, bad cop position. I try to be fair and firm at the same time, because we must be firm. The discussion with the Greek government is not easy always, but it has to be constructive and firm. During the last weeks I had numerous talks, as well with Prime Minister Samaras, with my friend Evangelos Venizelos, with Christine Lagarde, with Mario Draghi, and all of us. We had the same goal. The goal was to get out of the situation with an honorable situation, which will prepare the end of the program, which will prepare reforms, then which will prepare another kind of future with a credit line, which I think is a better solution for a kind of freedom for the Greek government to have its own administration.
So that was this effort that you describe now, all these phone calls and communication happened before the Eurogroup solved, the Eurogroup reaches an agreement.
Absolutely. And this is why I'm coming to Greece. When I was a candidate to be a commissioner, I had an hearing and I promised that my first visit to a country in Europe would be for Greece. The Eurogroup finally said that what was not done was enough to justify an extension of the program for 2 months and the principle of a European credit line. Okay, so now I come because I've got the basis, the background to give those messages, which are, I repeat, very friendly, very supportive, somehow admirative, but also firm, because it's not the end of the story. There are still some reforms which need to be done.
Did the political uncertainty in Greece affect the stance and the approach of the institutions?
Nobody likes uncertainty. The markets don't. The European Union doesn't. But again, we don't interfere in Greek politics. The Greek people, through their institutions now, and maybe tomorrow through elections, will choose their destiny. We don't have to influence that. But again, it's logical that we speak with legitimate people who do what we think needs to be done.
Will you meet also with the president with the leader of the opposition, Mr. Tsipras?
No, I won't this time. I'm visiting the authorities in charge as a commissioner, but in the future I think I will have the occasion to meet him. I'm interested to do so. Now it's a working visit of the commissioner to the Greek authorities.
Were you aware of the decision of Prime Minister Samaras ahead of his announcement?
No.
No, you heard it during the Euro.
And if I was, I wouldn't tell you.
Does Europe now have the internal capacity to deal with a crisis member after the experience gained from the program countries? I mean, in the case of Greece, you still said that IMF should be part of the solution. But from now on, shouldn't Eurozone have the internal capacity to deal with these issues alone?
Well, about Greece, what is in question now is how we end the program under good conditions. There, I must say 2 things. First, that I'm really admirative about the efforts which were made by the Greek people and also by the Greek government in order to reform as well their public finances and their economy. Let's have a look, for example, at deficits. It was 10%, over 10% a few years ago, and next year we are talking about a surplus, a primary surplus of 3%. And in a situation where the economy was in recession, well, it's a very, very important effort. And there were also reforms in order to help the Greek economy to recover. And I'm very glad that now our forecasts show very positive growth, about 3%, 2.9% for next year. So the efforts were necessary. Why? Because the situation was bad. Because the economy couldn't live with the previous structures. But now I think they start bearing fruits. I know that the Greek people suffered from that. I know that they made efforts, but now I think there is hope. And there is also the beginning of a success story. If I come to Athens Monday, it's in order to bring those messages. It's not another kind of visit of the Troika. It's a visit from the Commissioner, who is a friend of Greece, who is sure that there is now integrity of the Eurozone guaranteed, with Greece in, and we've got all the tools to do that, all the tools. But we need to have also a shared political will.
Do you think that all EU rules should be applied to everyone? Seems that France and Italy will have a hard time to reach targets put by the European Union for 2015. Will there be any leniency for France in order to reach targets in a smoother way? And if that is the case, shouldn't Europe be more lenient on Greece when it's a country that has achieved primary surplus, has the highest GDP on the 3rd quarter of 2014, and is projected to have a balanced budget in 2015?
We were talking about Greece. The only problem is not about deficit, it's a huge amount of debt. And it was also the state of the Greek economy a few years ago, which necessitated, obviously, some reforms in order to be modernized and stronger. But as far as France is concerned, and Italy and other countries, I must be very clear. My role here, I'm French, is not to act as a national, to be compliant with my own, or indulgent with my home country. If I would do so, my credibility would be immediately ruined. So it's not a personal problem, it's a problem of the institution, it's a problem of our common rules. Everybody must apply the rules. Everybody. There is no small country, big country, there is no huge power or a country which can be neglected there. The rules must be applied. But of course, those rules have in themselves some flexibility, some room of maneuvers, some discussions. Sanctions are never a good solution, never, because it proves that you didn't convince a country to reform, and this country there also is stigmatized, and it's generally the anti-European parties who take advantage of that. Never. But if necessary, we won't hesitate to take sanctions. That's very clear. And that's the language I have with everybody. So this is why we have now 3 months with Belgium, with Italy and France to discuss and to find ways. I hope we will. I think we have the capacity to find ways. I always prefer constructive dialogue to punishment. That's not my conception of what a European Commissioner should be. But well, you must be reassured, and everybody must be reassured. The rules are there to be applied by everybody.
France had 3 years to correct its numbers. Why do you think that this time, in 3 months, it will be different?
They probably won't correct their numbers, but they have to show very clearly and very precisely what the structural efforts were made, what structural reforms are on the table, and what kind of macroeconomic impact that could produce.
Could you say what is your best and what's your worst case scenario for Greece?
No, again, I'm always thinking about the best scenario. And to me, the best scenario is that we work close again in months to come, so that after the extension of 2 months of the program, it can be completed with reforms, and we move to an ECCL, and I think that would be very positive as well for Greece and for Europe. That would also change the scope, that would change the method. We wouldn't have the Troika as it is today, and I know that people in Greece want something different. We also want something different. We will have different partnership with Greece, and that's for me the best preferred scenario, and that's the scenario I advocated for in the last 40 days, and that's the one I will fight for in the months to come.